This was the very first time a direct-to-DVD Disney sequel was not shit. And I mean as in the second entries.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review, and this review is going to be for the sequel to the animated film I just reviewed about last Friday. Of course, it's going to be for one of the first few direct-to-DVD Disney sequels during the time they were doing direct-to-DVD sequels, and I think this might be my first review for a direct-to-DVD Disney sequel, because I've never reviewed those before. I reviewed Disney films, but not their direct-to-DVD sequels they've done, or direct-to-video sequels. But yeah, this was one of those, and surprisingly, this is one I think should have been a theatrical release and not a direct-to-DVD film, because this one actually was the few that actually felt like it had any effort put into it, felt like an actual story for a film, an actually good story for a sequel, and kind of the other half of that entire first film story, the epilogue. That is going to be for none other than 1998's The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. This one, I forget who this is directed by, but I forget. Daryl Rooney. It's directed by Daryl Rooney this time, not Rob Minkoff. There we go. Or Darren Rooney or Daryl Rooney, one of them. It's one of the first names pronounced like that. But anyway, what's the plot of this one? Well, this one, believe it or not, takes place kind of right where the first one ended, where Simba and Nala had that cub and it was being presented all to Pride Rock. Except this time, the scene is kind of reshot entirely. Because this time around, like, they confirm that the cub is the daughter now, and her name is Kiara. And so Simba, because of everything Simba went through, he's overprotective of Kiara. So he assigns Timon and Pumbaa to be her babysitters and her watchers. But she escapes the two because of their foolishness, and then ends up into the Forbidden Lands, or the Outlands, like where pretty much these followers of Scar, named the Outsiders, these like more scrawny lionesses, reside because they were banished by Simba for being too loyal to Scar. Then she meets a lion cub named Kovu and they become friends. But then, of course, she and her parents do not know is that Kovu is the son of the most loyal follower of the now dead Scar, Zira, voiced by Suzanne Plesha. She plans to raise Kovu to overthrow Simba and become the queen of the Pride Lands. And this tests not only Kiara and Kovu's relationship as they mature and become full-grown lions, but Simba's relationship with his daughter. So, how was this made? Well, like 2 months before the release of the first film, it was May 1994 when discussions about a direct-to-video sequel in The Lion King before the first one had even released. Around January 1995, a Lion King sequel was reported that it was going to be released in the next 12 months, but it got delayed, obviously. And then it got reported in May 1996 that it would be released in early 1997. And Daryl Rooney had signed on to direct the film, while Janine Roussel would serve as producer in around 1996. And during the time, when they were thinking of sequel ideas, they were going to have an actress from Fraser voice a new girlfriend for Zazu around April 1996, but they dropped that idea. August 1996, they were thinking of bringing the hyenas back, with Cheech Marin coming back to voice his character from the first film, but they cut out the hyenas from this one. Then in December 1996, of course, Matthew Broderick would come back to voice adult Simba. And there's characters named Aisha. They're gonna be Aisha, they were thinking of actresses for his daughter, Aisha, at the time named Aisha. There was either Sarah Jessica Parker, who would later become Matthew Broderick's wife, or Jennifer Aniston, but they dropped those actresses and they changed her name to Kiara, and we all know who did voice her. I'll get to that in a little bit. A new villain named Nuka, who was voiced by one certain piece of shit I'll talk about later. And so we all know Simba's daughter would end up being named Kiara, and she'd end up being voiced by, surprisingly, I didn't know this around the time until I got introduced to the Scream franchise. I found out that was actually Sydney herself, Ned Campbell, who voices adult Kiara. And of course, Kovu was actually voiced by Max Goof's voice actor, Jason Marsden, from the Goof movies. And was also in the English dub for Spirited Away. Yeah. So, and of course, like, guys, you know this. You know how the first Lion King was somewhat Disney take on Hamlet? This one is a Disney take on another Shakespeare story, Romeo and Juliet. But yeah. So yeah, and another thing that's like most of the original cast all reprised their roles, except Rowan Atkinson. It did not come back, and Edward Hibbert replaced him. And then of course, for like the nightmare scene, Jeremy Irons did not come back for Scar in that one, so Jim Cummings did his like brief little cameo. And of course was also the same guy who provided Scar's singing voice. So, after this movie was like shot and marketed for direct-to-video markets, it did have some marketing with McDonald's and Mattel. The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride was going to be released direct-to-video first, on VHS strictly first, on October 27th, 1998, because DVD was just kind of a little too new. It wasn't really existing too much back then. It didn't get released on DVD till November 1999, and then it got a 2-disc special edition around 2004, around the time Lion King 1.5 was coming out. But yeah, this was first released October 27th, 1998, and surprisingly, even though most of the direct-to-DVD Disney sequels are known for being either shit or badly animated or just purely unneeded, this one was one of the few rare to actually get any kind of positive attention. Not as much as the first one, obviously. That would be way too difficult. But this one was surprisingly well received by people. Even the fans actually liked it decently enough, or just admit it's one of the few Disney sequels they can actually tolerate watching. And ironically, this movie came out on video literally just a few days before Halloween. Even more ironic. So as for my reaction, you all should know just by what I've now said, I despise most of Disney sequels. But there are some few that can be good. There's Aladdin the King of the Thieves is a good one. Cinderella 3 Twists in Time is surprisingly a good one. The Winnie the Pooh spin-offs, they're definitely decent. Bambi 2 is also a decent little other half of the whole first film story, showing his time with the Great Prince of the Forest, when he's being raised by the Great Prince of the Forest, and now when it comes to, and then of course, maybe the Lilo and Stitch sequels are passable. Lilo and Stitch 2, I probably would slightly like if Lilo wasn't such an asshole in it. That's why I'm not a big fan of Lilo and Stitch 2. But now with this movie, this is one of the few direct-to-DVD Disney sequels that was not trash. Honestly, this movie now, yeah, it's not as great as the first one, but it serves as a good other half of the story that the first film started. It's kind of like the aftermath of the first movie's events, pretty much. It's the part 2, in a way. If you combine Lion King 1 and this movie together, they kind of work as one great double feature. I feel honestly, I think this, 2 direct-to-DVD Disney sequels got theatrical releases. Sadly, they were some of the shittier ones. There were Peter Pan 2, and there was The Jungle Book 2. Of all the sequels they fucking picked to do after Peter Pan 2 in theaters, it had to be The Jungle Book 2. Why? Instead of when it comes to the ones they should have released in theaters, this is one of the few they should have released in theaters instead. I feel if this had more years and maybe released in either 2000 instead, and maybe instead had more years, then this could have worked as part of the main Disney lineup instead of another Fantasia movie with a bunch of celebrity cameos. Fantasia 1, I haven't seen Fantasia 1, but I know Fantasia 1's one of Disney's well-known masterpieces. Fantasia 2000, mediocre, really. We didn't need a second Fantasia movie. I think you just needed one. But, this one, this should have been the one, the sequels they did in 2000, this should have been the one they did instead. Or at least or maybe release this instead of Dinosaurs part of their Disney Renaissance lineup, then this could have worked as a theatrical sequel. I don't know why this could have got a theatrical sequel instead of Jungle Book 2 or Peter Pan 2 instead. I wish this got a theatrical release instead. Like, don't get me wrong. The first one is a tough act to follow, and it's the better movie. But I love this one too. The songs are well written, they're fun, they're catchy. Even though the songs of this one, they're not as well written as the first one, they're not as iconic. The few of the songs, like some of them are just a little too simple, too short. And it feels like they're just simply added to say, we need a song. No, wait. Some songs are just there for fun, to progress the story quickly. There's some good compositions and songs that do stand out. But the first Lion King does better with the songs. This was around the time when Disney was doing direct-to-video sequels. They started off with Return of Jafar, and that wasn't well received, but it made a huge profit, so they kept doing more of it. And this was definitely not the exception for that, but here, this is one of the few times where the direct-to-video sequel crew of this one actually care more about the quality. Simba's Pride can stand by a good film, but it's definitely not it's a tough act to follow to be as good as the original movie. I don't think that would, even if this was the actual release, I don't think it still would have been as good as the original movie. We have a storyline once again based off a Shakespeare tragedy, and you have some good new characters and songs. The soundtrack's not bad at all. I think there's one song I don't like in this film, and I'll get to that part later. And honestly, for a direct-to-video Disney sequel, which most of them are made just for the kiddies, this is not one that's just made for the kiddies. There's still lots of drama moments in this one, like the first one has. And, there was even quite a few rough scenes they even had to cut from the film, because they felt it was either too dark or just too tragic. Right here. There were still some lines that did feel a little dull and lifeless at times. Some just want to add to the drama, but it didn't quite work so well. There's some also cliche bits, but the characters we saw in the first one, they still remain who they are. And definitely don't like that the writers didn't leave any people out of the first one, though, except for Sarabi, because her voice actress had died, so they couldn't really include her here, so maybe right there. But how do we start off The Lion King 2? Well, we start off where the previous film ended, and this time we're seeing our bamboo character, Rafiki. He's gathering the animals of the Pride Lands to the presentation of Simba and Nala's new daughter, Kiara. In Mufasa's spirit, James Earl Jones does briefly come back in this one as well. He watches over the ceremony, and he's blessing the cub in a beam of light, much like how Simba was, by likely Mufasa's father. Anyway there, and then of course, after the presentation, Timon and Pumbaa are look at the cute little guy, it'll be great old times when we're teaching them Hakuna Matata. And then Rafiki tells them, it's a girl. Girl! And then they pass on. That's where the main title comes up. Yeah, right there. And now, there's some have complained that there's not as much animals here this time. Well, here, I think this time it makes sense, because some of them are still likely recovering from when Scar almost fucked over the whole Pride Lands, and pretty much caused all the food to be gone, all the water to be gone, and all... Yeah, so some of them are likely still recovering from all of Scar's tyranny on the Pride Lands all those years. So it makes sense for there to be less animals. But then we meet what is actually technically... This is called Simba's Pride, but technically speaking, this cub, or Linus, is kind of more the lead of this one. So we meet our lead character, Kiara, now. She's now like a cub now. She's now this headstrong, stubborn cub when we first meet her as an actual character. And she has traits that Simba finds disconnecting because he's worried about the kind of trouble she'll get into like the ones he did. But now he assures him that she'll be fine. And so Kiara's verbatim of every danger has become aware of. So Simba's worried, and he assigns Timon and Pumbaa to watch over her. Then Kiara discovers the bumbling duo following her, though, and she gets annoyed with them and abandons them and runs off to the forbidden outlands that she was warned not to go to pretty much kind of warned not to go to by Zazu before she ran off, and because he pretty much warned her about the outsiders who were living there, who I'm going to mention soon. And we all know their Linus is banished because they supported Scar. Then when she gets there, Shin bumps into a deuterologist named Kovu, who was at first voiced by Ron O'Donoghue as a cub. they're hostile to each other at first, but they become friends. Like, especially like there's an incident where they almost get in trouble with a bunch of crocodiles and they save each other and they make it to safety in the Pride Lands. Although what we don't know is our new antagonist now, Zira, was watching them nearby. And then Simba and his pride have come to retrieve Kiara. Then he's confronted by Zira. And then Zira quickly reminds him that their lines all belong to Scar. And Simba reminds her that she was banished to the Outlands and tells her to leave with her cub. And then she reminds him of all the crap her tribe suffered in the Outlands because there was little foodless water. And then Simba's like, you know the penalty for returning the Pride Lands, but the child does not. And then she introduces Simba to her cub. And then reveals that Scar hand shows him to be his hire, and Simba's angered by this. But however, though, when Zero tries to offers Kovu to Simba to likely be killed, Simba's obviously horrified by this. Even though this cub's an outsider, he's not gonna kill a cub at all, though. Regardless, so Simba's still like the good character he is in this one, because even if this cub is from the banished Outlands, he's not going to kill him at all. Like, instead he, like, says in pure horror disgust, take him and get out. We're finished here. Yeah, and he demands Zero leave. But then Zero's like, but we've only just begun. Yeah, then so both lines depart to their domains, and Kiara and Kovu say farewells to each other. And then Simba scolds Kiara for disobeying him when they get back home. And even says that since she's going to be queen soon, she has to be wise because Simba's not going to be around forever, and is going to need Kiara to take his place and really wise up. But Kiara doesn't want to be queen, and thinks the title's only part of who she is. But Simba tells her it's in her blood, and that since they're the circle of life, they're connected to each other, and that they're one. And then, of course, you get our other song number. That is "We Are One," right there. So after the "We Are One" song, we go to Outlands. We get to the Outlands, and where we meet the Outsiders, the rest of the Outsider clan. And honestly, if I'm going to be honest here, this was one of my least favorite parts of the film, because, like, this Outsider area, it just looks like, it's not supposed to look pretty, but it just looks like there's really nothing but this whole rock. Just, like, one little cave, and that's about it. The rest of the alliances there are just... It's a direct-to-DVD film, though, and it feels just empty. So do these alliances, they just, like, sleep in the hot sun all day, or just sleep in the hot sun while Zero just probably sleeps in that rock instead? It seems a little weird. It kind of just seems like a lame place. And another problem I have, that's also where you meet Andy Dick's character. Zira's oldest son, Nuka. And let me say this, guys. I was not a fan of his character. I thought his character was just very annoying. Just was not really needed. Didn't really contribute anything to the plot. In fact, like, honestly, I don't think Kovu really needed any siblings to begin with. And, like, the other thing is, I'm not a fan of Andy Dick as a person either. Because this guy's done a lot of creepy things, like either from exposing a 17-year-old's boobs in a restaurant or bar, showing his naked butt crack at a McDonald's, has groped plenty of girls, and has done plenty of other despicable shit. That's just a few of the things he's done. He's done more despicable shit, guys. You really want to know so bad? Just go look him up on Wikipedia. It's all there. So yeah, we meet Nuka, voiced by Andy Creeper Dick, who's complaining to Kovu's other son, Vitani, about Kovu being the chosen one, and thinks he should have got the role because he's older. Like, I don't care if you're older, dude. You seem like a big fucking idiot. Like, you're already freaking out over termites, and you're not brave at all. If you were the chosen one, you'd screw everything up in minutes. But then Vitani rebukes her Rack Brothers' complaints, since because he's cowardly to make the claim to Zero herself. And then, of course, Zero arrives at Kovu and belittles Nuka for not watching him. But then she turns to Kovu, reminds him that Simba's the reason they're banished, and because Scar died. So then Kovu expresses a desire to be friends with Kiara, but Zero laughs this off. But then, of course, she realizes this might be a good idea to get control of Pride Rock and kill Simba. She wants to use Kiara and Kovu's friendship against Simba. So she brings Kovu home to amass this termite mound, and announces his training will be immediately intensified the next day. And also, like, so, and even though this takes inspiration from Romeo and Juliet, it kind of feels more like a story about kind of Simba and Kovu's characters, just two confused young men. They're expecting them trying to follow in their father's footsteps and think they're doing the right thing, and that causes trouble with their families and with each other. But there are still a bit of little elements in the Romeo and Juliet love story. It's kind of more of a thing on the basic story, and the stuff that does bring closure to the story, though. Now, when it comes to how people view Simba in this movie, there's some people that view him as an asshole, or just a prick. But at first, when I was younger, I did kind of agree with that. But as I've gotten older, like today, honestly, I feel like this movie just kind of victimizes Simba a lot of times, and it kind of wants you to not be on his side and wants you to be constantly against him whenever he does one thing. Whenever he does one, like, king-worthy thing, it's wrong. I feel like the problem is, this movie tries to force you to like her so much. Whenever she does one thing, it's right. It's good. And there's, like, really no reason or much development for that at all. It just kind of feels lazy and forced. It kind of like the writers just want you to be on Kiara's side the whole entire movie. If Simba does one thing, it's automatically bad. Which I'll get to that part later as well. Now, the story's writers, they put their heart in this one. They made it believable well. Even though sometimes it feels like some people are just made by people that criticize Simba as a character a lot. If you think everything that's happened to him at a young age and the way he spent most of his life in the first film, the way he acts in the sequel to me is kind of realistic. And I actually like they went that route. Here. And I like they turned the genderless cub in the end of the first film into this daughter instead of a son, because we already had a movie about a male cub that was the first film. And I feel like if they made the cub a boy, it probably would have just felt like the same movie as the first film. So it's like they made the cub Simba's daughter instead to actually do something different. So that was a better idea, so they wouldn't repeat the first movie again. So anyway, after Zero's villain song, we then meet Kiara is now an adult and is now voiced by Neve Campbell. She's about to go on her first solo hunt, and Simba's still overprotected about his daughter's safety, so he once again sends Timon and Pumbaa to supervise her, but Kiara discovers this again. Then she runs off away from the Pride Lands, where she's warned not to go. Then Zero implements her plan to infiltrate Simba's pride and sends Nuka and Vitani, who Vitani's now a grown-up lion, to ignite this wildfire in the plains. So then Kiara gets trapped by flames and smoke and then faints. And you do get a brief reference to Scar's hideout when Kovu and Vitani are visiting a place. Well, this place has gotten creepier since the hyenas ran off. It reveals what happened to the hyenas after the first film. They pretty much ran off, and they pretty much never came back near the Pride Lands ever again. And then we meet adult Kovu, who's now voiced by Jason Marsden. He appears and he carries Kiara to safety, where Zazu, who's voiced by Edward Hibbert instead of Rowan Atkinson, reports to Simba, who has now seen the smoke from the Pride Rock, and they locate Kiara, and Simba pretty much bans Kiara from doing any more hunts. Then Kovu pretty much makes his plea to join them, though, and claims he left the Outsiders, and requests to be judged for who he is rather than by association. So Simba agrees just to repay the debt owed by saving Kiara's life at Nala's suggestion. And he will enforce judgment soon, though, so he forces Kovu to sleep outside when they get to Pride Rock, and Kiara thanks Kovu for saving her life, but he criticizes her hunting abilities. So Kiara requests that he teach her better, so they start at dawn. Then Simba suffers this nightmare where he relives his father's death with hands of Scar. But then, of course, it morphs when Simba is also the one who falls down the cliff into a stampede, when Scar morphs into Kovu and sends Simba to his death. So, pretty much, then Simba wakes up in the nightmare and then goes to the watering hole alone, where at first Kovu is ready to attack, but Kiara arrives, so he stops his attack quick to avoid being caught, and they go off to practice hunting. Kiara's hunting skills are still a little wanting, and Kovu is about to offer a demonstration, so he pounces over a hill and tries to go to some landed birds, but he comes face to face with Timon and Pumbaa, who are trying to get to some bugs, and the birds are hogging all the bugs. So pretty much this convinces Kiara to show Kovu how to roar to chase them off. And so the birds all run off and they pursue the birds. And they're kind of bonding right here. And then, of course, like, this is the first time Kovu's had any fun in his life. Then Kiara shows Kovu the starts. And then after that, though, they get chased away by rhinos, who went where the birds went to. So after that, like, later that night, Kiara shows Kovu the starts of the night sky. And then shows all the great kings of the past there. Like, kind of like the scene with Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa in the first film. Or the scene with Simba and Mufasa. Like, the last bit they have before Mufasa dies. Then Kovu asks if Scar's up there, and then that leads to an awkward moment between him and Kiara, though. And he admits that he was not Scar's son at all, he was just a part of him. And then the young lines get closer and closer, and then Kovu feels conflicted between fulfilling his mission and his growing feelings for Kiara after this. So, and right there, like, Simba's also staring at the stars, and Nala convinces Simba to give Kovu a chance and, like, to get to know him better. Then, like, although Kovu's actually now conflicted, he decides to try to abandon the mission and leave. But then Rafiki appears and he stops him from leaving because he saw a vision of Mufasa and the two young lions will bring peace between the prides. And so, yeah, like, there's winds that actually are pretty much Mufasa's spirit that tell Rafiki that Kiara and Kovu have to be the ones that pretty much unite the whole prides together. Right there. So Rafiki takes the two lions to this place called Yapendi, which is kind of like this African word for love, and the two lions fall in love, and then they return to Pride Rock, and then Simba actually decides to invite Kovu to sleep inside, and Vitani, though, sees Kovu failing to attack Simba, and so she reports this to Zira. So, yeah, like, the idea that not all the lionesses are happy to see Simba return was a pretty adult concept that definitely would occur to some kids as they get older. But it would be kind of true, though. It's kind of a nice little storyline. It gives life array to this complex thoughts of a group that they will see as adults, and whereas some will be happy at a better king, some will prefer the more better king. Like, that's pretty much a lot of real life scenarios today. There's some nice little touch with the growth of Zazu's character. Even if I wasn't a big fan of his new voice, really, I do wish they kind of kept Rowan Atkinson. Like, where he was panicked most of the first film. And then, like, he didn't really do much the rest of the first one after he got knocked out by Scar. This one, he does stay concerned, but he doesn't really give it to panic, and he does fly off to get help at a certain scene I'm going to get to very soon. And, like, yeah, you all know sometimes a sequel's not going to always have the same benchmarks as a film before it. If it takes the characters through a storyline that's believable and stays consistent with characterizations, and The Lion King 2 does this perfectly well. There's still decent music. Like, He Lives in You is a great intro song. Though, like, the villain song is actually pretty good. And, like, We Are One's also a good song. One of Us is a good song. However, the one song I do not like in this part was easily Upendi. Easily, by far, the weakest song of the movie. Because it was just never touched up on again after its one appearance. And there's some cringy stuff that happens in the song that's a little cartoonish for The Lion King, really. Like, such as the part where the monkeys sing. It really just... Oh my god. When that part happens, it just sounds like the monkeys are really screaming instead of singing. It just sounds like they're screaming at... I don't know. This makes it so weird. Like, screaming like they're being... Like, they're basically being butt-effed instead of literally sounding like they're really singing. God. So yeah, it's just a random moment right there, and it just makes the song feel weird. Right there, and this song just feels a little weird and out of focus for a film like this. The animation this time is a little more loose. It's not part of the original's animation, but to be fair though, this is a direct-to-DVD film though. Like, this is one of the reasons why I kind of wish this was a theatrical release and it just got like 2 more years and released in 2000 instead. But yeah, so the next morning, Kovu's like about to realize that he has to now confess to Kiara about his plan. But then, of course, since Simba is now starting to trust Kovu a little more, he takes Kovu for a walk to the whole fire area from the first film, like, and he tells him the story of Scar that Kovu never heard at all. Right there. And then during their whole conversation, it seems like he's willing to let Kovu live at the Pride Lands. It seems like things are going smooth. But then, of course, Zira and her pack appear, and Simba is immediately attacked, and Kovu does try to intervene, but Vitani knocks him out. The outsiders chase Simba to a gorge, and he has to climb up this dam made of fallen trees. Kovu's at the top, and right there he had the opportunity to help Simba, but of course Zira was there. He decides to cowardly take off right there, and so Nuka's stupid ass rushes up the dam. Like, none of the other line, you see none of the outsiders trying to pursue Simba up the dam because they know if they go up, they'll immediately kill themselves. And there's not room for two. But Nuka stupidly pretty much gets himself killed, going up there to try and impress his mom, but they can't support them both, so he loses his footing just as he catches up to Simba, and he gets crushed by the logs to death. And Zira comforts Nuka as he dies, but then she immediately loses any sympathy again, and then she immediately rages at Kovu, thinking that he got Nuka killed, but Kovu wants nothing to do with Scar now or any of the outsiders, so he goes back to Pride Rock. However, though, as soon as he gets back to Pride Rock, the first reaction he gets are some pissed off animals that just look like they're ready to kill him. As soon as he returns, these guys look like they want him dead. They are not happy to see him again, and Simba kicks him out. As soon as he returns, he banishes him, and he locks Kiara pretty much inside the den, does not let her leave Pride Rock ever again. Now, I'm going to say this right here, during the whole sequence you get another song, that's The One of Us, which is a pretty infamous song that I kind of am pretty familiar with, and I've kind of played quite a few times during certain situations on YouTube. And right here, all these animals, they just chase him out. They're actually, they're not just chasing him out. They're accusing him. They're even beating him up at times. Ostriches are pecking him. Monkeys are trying to beat him up with rocks. And birds are even beating him up and trying to peck at him with their beaks. I'm like, no. These guys are, beating the crap out of him all the way out of the Pride Lands. And Simba's just giving him one angry death glare all the way from Pride Rock. And you get this reflection where he pretty much sees his reflection, and then he sees Scar's reflection. It's kind of a throwback to the first one this time. And now, I'm going to say this here, guys. The animals were rough on Kovu, yes, and they should not have been that rough. And now people will get pissed off at me for saying this, but I'm going to be honest, and I don't care how people want to react. If you want to get mad at me for saying this, fine, but now, I know Kovu had nothing to do with the ambush. And I'm not saying it's his fault at all. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he deserves to suffer like Simba did. Okay? But granted Simba could have handled it better. But in all honesty, I feel like Kovu picked a very bad time to return to Pride Rock. Before Simba got attacked, Kovu, the last you saw of Simba before that was him angrily staring at you and yelling, "You!" Just looking at you furious, and honestly, Kovu, at the dam, Kovu had the opportunity to help him up, and you could have made it look, and then you could have just made it look like you killed him when he got to the top, but no, you kind of just chose to cowardly run away, all because your herd was at the bottom. You could have made it, once you, helped him up, you could have made it look, just made it look like you killed him, right there, you could have just did that. So, honestly, to me, Kovu did kind of bring this harsh treatment he got when he returned on himself, and yeah, all these animals were being too violent on him, though, but they kind of have a right to be pissed off, because, that's their king that got attacked, and, they almost had to deal with a shitty king named Scar. So, and, honestly, Kovu just should have really waited till all those animals were gone, or, you really just should have came clean earlier while you had the chance. That night when you were under the stars with Kiara, you had that time to come clean about why you were there. You could have used the opportunity to confess your whole plan, and then maybe your banishment wouldn't have been so harsh, even if it did still happen. And also, guys, and another problem that people are going to get mad at me for, this scene alone is why I honestly don't like this fucking character. Because literally, most of the film, she does often ignore Simba's warnings a lot of times. And when Simba does tell her to be careful when she runs off, she almost ends up going out of bounds to escape Timon and Pumbaa in the beginning of the film. And then when she first meets Kovu, they nearly get eaten by crocodiles. And I can bet you, if Simba had not shown up in that nick of time, Zero was there, and Zero would have probably killed her straight away. And also, to be fair, and when her father came back from the attack, he returned barely even alive. And once they got back to Pride Rock, all she seemed to be really concerned about was, honestly, she seemed like she was more worried about Kovu getting punished. Not her father, who nearly died in a fucking ambush. Like, in this most of it, yeah, that's just how I feel like it. Really. But of course, then Kiara says the quote, pretty much tells some of the quote after Kovu gets banished, they argue some more, and then she tells him, you will never be Mufasa, and then right there, that makes Simba horrified, and then she escapes, and then she reunites with Kovu on the plains, and then Kovu suggests running away together, but Kiara states that if they leave, their prides will be forever divided, so they have to go back. Let's get another great song there called Love Will Find a Way, and that's probably also the second best song behind He Lives in You, the intro song. Those two songs are magical, they're beautiful, and they're definitely, yeah, and the animators really meet the expectations of those songs right there. Now anyways, though, on to the finale. So, we get back to Zero and her pride, and they go into the Pride Lands, and one last bit to claim Pride Rock. So Simba and his pride go to face them at the gorge, and this very downpour, and this fierce fight breaks out, and Simba and Zero are about to face off, but Kovu and Kiara interfere, and Kiara tells Simba that he once told her that they were one when she was a cub. It explains that it applies to all alliances, even the outsiders. Although when she says, "What differences do you see?" Honestly, I see a lot of differences. These are lionesses that look more evil, more scrawny, more deadly than the Pridelanders themselves do. And with how they look and how murderous they even appear, they look very different. But her words inspire everyone except for Zira, who doesn't want to let go of the past. But Vitani deflects to Simba's side, and then Zira threatens to kill her. The outsiders do not like this, so they deflect to Simba's side now. They now realize the monster Zira really is, and that she is long beyond any redemption. So she tries to lunge at Simba one last time, and Kiara intercepts though, and the two of them tumble down the gorge, and Kiara lands on a ledge while Zira hangs on by her claws. And though, Kiara offers to help Zira, but she refuses, and she falls to her death in the flood. So Zira's dead, and Simba apologizes to Kovu for banishing him, and he lets everyone, both outsiders and Pridelanders, back into Pride Rock. And so the next morning, the outsiders are now back to their, normal selves now. And so Simba, Kiara, and Kovu, they stand at the edge of Pride Rock, and they roar together to bring in this new era of peace. And Mufasa's spirit looks down at the Pride from up high in the clouds, and he repeats the edge, "We are one," and that's the end of the movie right there. Yeah, that's how Simba's Pride ends. And I guess pretty much how the story as a whole ends, because at the end of the movie, when it cuts to black, it says the end, so it signals as a good end to this whole story as a whole. It's the end of part 2, and now the whole story of The Lion King is complete. But yeah, now, I did already, when it comes to the bad qualities part, I did mention most of my other bad qualities, but let's still discuss some others still I haven't mentioned yet. The reason is because while I have some problems with it, it's still a good direct-to-video Disney sequel, but it still has some other problems of usual direct-to-DVD Disney sequels. The first bit, I wish, I'm not really a big fan of Zazu's new voice or new voice actor. I do wish they just kept Rowan Atkinson, because Rowan Atkinson did a better job than Edward Hibbert did. And also, they removed Sarabi, and I get Sarabi's voice actress had passed on. They didn't want to include her for that reason, but I do wish they at least still explained why she was absent, and didn't act like she didn't exist. And in characters like Zazu and Nala, they have, nothing to do the whole film. Most of the film, anyways. But yeah, and also, Timon and Pumbaa, their comedy was terrific in the first film, but there's times when their comedy just kind of ruined some scenes, and they just weren't as funny this time around. I don't think you really needed to make them funny all the time, every single scene they were in, especially during the final fight, during Kovu's banishment. You could have just had Pumbaa hold them back for, their one scene, right there. And like that would have just been fine. If it was just like the hold me back scene, like where Pumbaa just held Timon back on purpose and not got told to hold him back, like that would have been fine right there. Like there's even some deleted bits that were going to be that got removed from the final cut. Like originally after Kovu got banished, Mufasa was going to berate Simba for banishing Simba, saying, "You let your family break apart, and in doing so, you've broken the circle of life." I honestly, now, if that was taken out because some people might have been worried I would have made Mufasa an asshole, I wish it was still in there. I do wish it was still in there, because then I maybe would understand better why everyone was mad at Simba for his decision. Even if it would have made Mufasa a little uncharacteristic, but I wish it was still in there. I think they should have kept that. And like Zira's death was going to be like intended suicide, but the people thought that was too dark, and it changed it to her screaming. And honestly, her scream's just badly done, because like you could tell it's the original scene they used, because when she's screaming, you can see her smiling all the way down. So they really couldn't really change it. Like it just felt like, so yeah, like they should have just kept the original version of the scene. I don't care if it was too dark. But regardless, though, The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride is still a good sequel. It's not as good as the first film, and I think, although that's just going to be an impossible thing to do, though, because it can't top the first film, but it can be watched as like the part 2 of the whole 3-hour animated launch story. So, in the end, Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, it's totally worth buying for fans of the first film, and those that want to see a rare good Disney sequel that does not ruin the first film's legacy, and has a reason to actually exist. Anyways, guys, that's it for my view of The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride. If we're going to rank The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you love the first one and want to see the other half of the story, how it all concludes, then totally watch it by The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride for your collection, no doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, I'm going to give The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride a 7.5 out of 10. There we go, guys. That wraps up my review for The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride. Now I want to know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of this movie? Do you like this movie, or do you think it's another bad direct-to-DVD Disney sequel? Tell me down in the comments below. And until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. And if you like this and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to Don G. Corleone.